Commission, which will be at the behest of the Rhode Island House of Representatives. I'd like to begin by confirming that you're all here of your own free will. I don't hear anyone or see any nods suggesting otherwise. So that as you all have agreed to serve, you will be carrying out the purpose in the 2016 House Resolution 8206 sub A. This commission is charged with conducting a comprehensive study and assessing the use of solitary confinement at the Rhode Island ACI. Commission is expected to report back to the House of Representatives no later than January 27th, 2017, and the Commission intends to expire as of March 27th, 2017. So the first order of business is to nominate the chairman of this commission as well as the vice. I will entertain a motion to nominate the chairperson of the commission.
I move that we nominate Representative Regunberg as the chair.
Is there a second? I'll second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. I will now turn it over to the newly elected chair, who will attend to the nomination of the vice chair and the remaining agenda today. Thank you all for agreeing to serve on behalf of the speaker and on behalf of Chair Regunberg, and we're looking forward to receiving good work from this commission. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Director Urbani, for all the work you've put into this. Thanks to all the members of the commission. The next item, the next piece of business is the nomination of a vice chair. I will open nominations, and the chair will nominate Representative John Fellela. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Well, first of all, again, I want to thank everyone for being here, both today and more importantly for committing to this study commission process. Just for folks at home, this is a volunteer commitment folks are making, so I really want to recognize these are people putting their talents and expertise and time into this just for a shared belief and passion in making our criminal justice and prison system as best as it can be. So I'm grateful to all of you for that commitment. Today is going to be a brief, just organizational meeting. It should be pretty painless. We're going to just give an overview of sort of the process going forward and what we can all expect. I think it'd be valuable to just start off with a quick round of introductions. So if we could, so we all know who's here and folks watching at home know who's here as well. If you want to start, Roberta, just state your name, who you're representing on the commission, and if you want, very briefly, sort of if there's a perspective that you're hoping to bring to the conversation.
Roberta Richmond. I worked for the Department of Corrections for 33 years. I retired 4 years ago and have been in conversation with Representative Regunberg and others regarding the use of solitary confinement, and I look forward to contributing my perspective, my particular perspective, as the discussion ensues.
I'm Representative John Fellela, and I'm from Pawtucket. Certainly, I come to this commission by way of being involved with my counterpart, Representative Regunberg, in trying to solve some of the issues that the solitary confinement has been brought to our attention. So I'm looking forward to actually having a rather lively discussion about the use of solitary confinement.
Aaron Regunberg, House District 4.
A.T. Wall, Director of the Rhode Island Department of Corrections. I'm a career corrections professional, got my start as a line probation parole officer, 30 years with our department, and my 17th as director of the RIDOC. And I am here because we recognize that it goes by a number of different names. We tend to call it restrictive housing. That restrictive housing has emerged as an issue across the country, an issue in inmate management, and it's one that we think we need to take a look at, and we're here in a spirit of collaboration to do just that.
My name is Louis Serbo, Director of Behavioral Health at the Rhode Island Department of Corrections. One of my roles is also to oversee the mental health at the Department of Corrections. I've also worked at Buddha, Behavioral Health, Developmental, Disabilities in Hospitals for 8 years as the administrator of the State Psychiatric Hospital, and prior to that worked in the Massachusetts Department of Corrections. Thank you.
I'm Richard Ferruccio. I'm the president of the Rhode Island Brotherhood of Correctional Officers. I've been a correctional officer since 1984, also a career corrections person. Looking forward to seeing what we can do to improve our system. I think we already have one of the better run systems in the country, but we have an opportunity for improvement and ideas, something we're always looking forward to. So I'm looking forward to this commission. Thank you.
Years in the Department of Corrections of the ECI as a transfer from that state to New Jersey, and approximately 12 of those years was spent in close custody or segregation. So I'm bringing a personal perspective to this matter around my own personal experiences and dealing with that. I do see a need for improvement in a lot of areas. Especially from the perspective of the long-term effects of punitive segregation. And so hopefully that'll come out in these discussions about how we can improve to make it better.
My name is Laura Pisaturo. I'm here in my capacity as chairperson of the Rhode Island Parole Board. I'm an attorney by background, former prosecutor, former victim advocate, private practitioner, and now chair of the Parole Board. So I'm here representing the Parole Board and very much looking forward to hearing the current state of affairs on the use of restrictive housing and confinement and what balanced approach we should be taking, what best practices are out there, and how that might intersect with decisions that we make on the Parole Board for the incarcerated inmates who are coming up for parole.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael DeLauro. I have been privileged to be an assistant public defender since March the 2nd, 1981. During that time, I've also had the privilege of representing indigents accused of crime in all of the courts of this state, all of the state courts except for the family court. So looking forward to the work of this group. And I'm the designee for the Chief Public Defender, Mary McElroy.
My name is James Whedon. I'm Assistant Director for Institutions and Operations. I have 38 years with the department, starting off as a correctional officer, lieutenant, captain, deputy warden, warden of maximum and high security for 11 years, and now in my current role as Assistant Director for Institutions and Operations.
Good afternoon. I'm Brad Brockman, the Executive Director of the Center for Prisoner Health and Human Rights, based at the Miriam Hospital, and our work focuses on improving the health and human rights of justice-involved people through education, research, and advocacy. We look forward to working with the department and all the other stakeholders in moving forward with meaningful reform in restricted housing. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Meg Klingham. I am the director of the state's Office of the Mental Health Advocate. I started off my career a long time ago as an assistant public defender for 16 years. I was then legal counsel for the State Department of Behavioral Health. Now I'm the mental health advocate, and I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy that all of these people have convened to try and make some changes, necessary changes. Many of my clients who are criminally involved and who are at the ACI find themselves in segregation because they're unable to comport their behaviors due to their mental illness. So I think it's really great that we're looking to solutions for this problem.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Bailey. I'm the former assistant director of the ACI. Prior to that, I was a career employee with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, where I spent 28 years. I am currently an auditor with the American Correctional Association, so my perspective will be from my background. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kenny Alston. I'm the Chief Legal Counsel at the Department of Health, and I'm the designee of Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott, the Director of the Department. I'm looking forward to sharing my perspective both from the public health lens as well as the legal and public policy.
Hi, my name is Bob Marshall. I am the designee of the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Developmental Disabilities Council. The Council's role here is to look at the effects on people with disabilities of restrictive housing, as well as bring to some of what we've learned about best practice with using these types of approaches in other settings and some of the things that we've come up with as alternatives.
Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Seabury. I'm representing the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence. I have a background in victim advocacy as well as community organizing and some time in the mental health field as well. And the Nonviolence Institute, I think, comes with a unique position because we are one of the few organizations dedicated towards violence reduction and one of the even fewer that combines victim services alongside a robust offender outreach program. And so we come with a pretty uniquely holistic approach. So I'm excited to work with the stakeholders at the table to try to bring both sides together as well.
My name is Chris Matkovic. I'm a staff psychiatrist at Rhode Island Hospital. I'm the director of the Division of Correctional Psychiatry and Psychiatric Emergency Services at Rhode Island Hospital. I've been board certified in adult psychiatry, child psychiatry, addiction psychiatry, and forensic psychiatry, and I've been working at the ACI since 2008, working with patients both in and out of restrictive housing, and hope to help to elucidate the effect of restrictive housing on mentally ill patients and non-mentally ill patients.
Thank you to all of you. As we can all see, there's an incredible amount of experience and smart minds in this room, so I'm truly excited and looking forward to working with all of you. The next item on the agenda is a presentation by myself to just sort of give an overview of our goals and purposes on this commission, the timeline and process through which we can pursue those goals, and some sense of the expectations for how all of us can engage. Got a PowerPoint, if we can load that up, Mr. O'Brien, thank you. And I promise this will be the only commission meeting where I will be giving a presentation, but we'll get through it quick, I promise. So our commission's mandate can be found in the language of House Bill 8206 sub A, passed in the last legislative session, which states the purpose of said commission shall be to make a comprehensive study and assess the use of solitary confinement in the Rhode Island ACI, including but not limited to rate and length of solitary confinement sentences, proportionality between disciplinary offenses and the solitary confinement sentences they induce, psychological impact of prolonged solitary confinement on inmates, public safety implications of prolonged solitary confinement once inmates return to the community, extent to which solitary confinement has a particular impact on vulnerable populations, such as those with disabilities, fiscal impact of the current use of solitary confinement, extent to which the Department of Corrections' current record-keeping policies on the use of solitary confinement are adequate to making administrative decisions, and alternatives to and best practices for reducing the use of solitary confinement as developed by other jurisdictions, and the extent to which these alternatives impact cost, behavior, and other outcomes within prison systems. So that is a pretty ambitious mandate that has been put on our shoulders by the legislature, but again, looking around at everyone in this room, I feel quite confident that we are up to the task. I want to make a very quick comment on terminology before moving forward. For today, I'll be using the term solitary confinement. The Department of Corrections, as Director Wall mentioned, has a number of specific classifications with specific definitions, and part of our meeting at the next commission meeting, the department will go over that so we can have a clear sense of what exactly we're talking about. For the rest of this presentation, I'm going to be using the vernacular sort of catch-all solitary confinement. I think all of us understand that, folks at home understand that, but we're going to be getting more specific at the next meeting so that we're talking about precise classifications. Sound good? Yes. So our commission has a balanced membership. I really want to stress this because this was an important part of the legislative process that created this commission. There's a lot of conscious effort to talk to different stakeholders, make sure we had all perspectives adequately represented. We have 3 members of the House, myself, Vice Chair Barros, and 1 minority member from the minority party. We have 5 members appointed by the Rhode Island Department of Corrections. So Director Wall, we're very glad to have you, and some of the members of his team that he felt were important in this conversation. We have the Brotherhood of Correctional Officers at the table. Obviously, that's a tremendously important stakeholder. All policy and discussions have a direct impact on our corrections officers, so we're incredibly glad to have your voices at the table. We have the Department of Health, the Mental Health Advocate, the Parole Board, Public Defender, Developmental Disabilities Council. We have the Center for Prisoner Health and Human Rights. We have Direct Action for Rights and Equality. We have the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence. We have former corrections officials and a formerly incarcerated individual who's experienced confinement firsthand. So again, we tried to build a balanced membership. Obviously, all of us are coming as individuals into this process with different perspectives, perhaps different opinions on this issue, and that's as it should be. But I do want to stress, as a body, we are starting this process, and we need to be starting this process without opinions or preconceived notions or assumptions on where it's going to lead us. We're going to be basing our discussion and analysis on the testimony and data and research that we bring forward as a commission. And so while we all have our own individual thoughts as a body, we're really starting this from a clean slate. So, we saw our legislative mandate. It's quite big, and so to sort of break it down, make it a little more manageable, I've sort of divided our work before us into 3, we can think of them as subtasks, and I'm going to go over each of those in a little bit of detail. So number 1, we're going to examine the use of solitary confinement in Rhode Island and determine whether current policy and practice offers room for improvement. Number 2, we're going to study best practices from other states to collect lessons and principles that might have some value here in Rhode Island. And number 3, we're going to put all that together and draft recommendations for administrative or legislative changes. So we're going to go through each of those one at a time. Subtask 1 is to survey and analyze the reality of the current use of solitary confinement in Rhode Island and its impact and results. The goal of that examination is to answer the questions, is there room for improvement in how we do things? And if so, where? Again, I want to stress that as a body, we're not starting out with assumptions to either of those questions. We might find out that everything is sort of reasonably as good as it could be, and we're all set. We might find out there are particular room for improvement. We're going to figure that out as we move forward. And in order to do that, we're going to sort of look at current practice and policy through a few different lenses. Number 1, we're going to take a quantitative lens. The Department of Corrections has been asked to gather some data about the use of and population in solitary confinement so that we can answer questions such as how many inmates are in the different classifications, what are the lengths of confinement of these folks, what are the offenses for which they received this confinement, what's the demographic breakdown of these inmates, including things like mental health status. So basically, how many people are going into solitary, into segregation or confinement? Why are they going there? How long are they going there for? and what do those people actually look like. And I do want to particularly thank the Department of Corrections. I know there's been some concerns about their data management system, and so my understanding there's some particular people at the department who are putting in a lot of time, sometimes manually, to gather all this data for us. So I'm grateful to those individuals as well as the department for that outlay of energy and time.
That is true. And we appreciate your recognition of that fact.
So once we have sort of a baseline of data and knowledge about what's going on, we're going to look through a more qualitative lens. We're going to be inviting sort of stakeholder and community member testimony, folks who have experienced, who are formerly incarcerated, who've experienced solitary confinement firsthand, the family members of folks who are experiencing this. One group of people that always, it's obviously a challenge to hear from them are people who are currently in the ACI. Hopefully we can have some slight window into that through some written testimony from current inmates and professional practitioners. And I want to point out, in my experience, there's often a pattern when we're talking about criminal justice reform or prison policy that the voices of stakeholders who are among those most directly impacted, the folks who are actually, incarcerated, are left out. And so we do want to make sure that those voices, like our other stakeholders, are at the table through this part. And then the final bucket in subtask 1 is really focusing in on health. So we're going to do a review of the research on both the physical and mental health implications of solitary confinement. We're going to get some testimony from physical and mental health practitioners inside and outside of the Commission. We've got some of that right here on the Commission already. Inside and outside of the ACI. So once we've gotten a better sense of what's actually going on right now, and are there some areas of concern, are there some areas that are going really great, we can move on to the next subtask, which is to look beyond Rhode Island. There are a number of states in recent years that have attempted various reforms and shifts in their practice and policies around solitary confinement. So we might find out we don't have to totally reinvent any wheels here. There might be models out there that we can take a look at and find some valuable lessons here in Rhode Island, both things that are working, maybe things that are not working, and that we want to get lessons from that end. Do want to keep in mind, this has been brought up by the department and some others, obviously we have a particular context here in Rhode Island, and that every state has its own context. Some states might have more similar context to us. Some states might have less similar. We definitely want to be keeping that in mind when we're looking at different case studies because, you can't always compare apples and oranges. At the same time, we also want to recognize, despite what people sometimes say, Rhode Island is not a rock in and of itself, and there might be some stuff out there that we can get some valuable lessons from. And then finally, we are going to bring all of that together and try to synthesize it into some specific recommendations if we determine that there is some room for improvement, what that could or should look like. And there's a couple frameworks that I want us to think about how those recommendations should be drafted. That's a ways away from where we are now, but it's worthwhile from the beginning to think about. One is sort of shorter term versus longer term recommendations. The purpose of this commission is to address issues around the current use of solitary confinement. Obviously, that is one small slice of a very complicated system, which is in and of itself a part of a bunch of different systems. And so, I full well expect we're going to have conversations where issues that are much broader, whether they're have to do with the prison system, whether they have to do with our mental health or community health system. There's a lot of things going on, and we do want to include those longer term or more sort of budgetary implications, issues in our recommendations. At the same time, you'll notice in our legislative mandate, I think there is a pretty clear focus on sort of nearer term practice and policy and taking a look at that and improvements in that. So we're going to deal with both, but we certainly are not going to let the longer term things dominate and push out the shorter term things, because that is a very important part of our legislative mandate. And then the second sort of spectrum or axis here is administrative versus legislative recommendations. There are some important stakeholders at the table who've expressed a strong preference for administrative over legislative recommendations, and that's a preference that I appreciate and respect. And so the Commission, if we determine that there is room for improvement on this issue, our sort of plan A, our first goal, is to work together to try to identify recommendations that can be implemented administratively. That's the primary goal. Obviously, if we cannot achieve some consensus around a set of administrative ideas, we're going to talk about and have legislative recommendations, but our plan A should be thinking about administrative. So just to run over a brief agenda or timeline for what we're thinking. So our first meeting today, organizational, we're going to wrap it up pretty soon. Our second meeting will be a review of that data as well as those definitions from the department to get a baseline of what's going on. Our next meeting after that will be for the community and stakeholder testimony. Then we're going to look at the health research and implications. Then we're going to go outside of Rhode Island, take a look at some of the case studies, and then we're going to bring it all together and talk about recommendations. Now, this is a idealized timeline here. We might find that some of these issues require more than one meeting to get through. Maybe some of them we can squeeze into one meeting. I feel a little less confident about that. One of these that I anticipate may very well require more than one meeting is the last one. Often in my experience, how legislative study commissions go is, the commission happens and then it closes and then the report or recommendations are drafted. And what I envision for our commission is a little bit different in that we're actually going to work together as a commission to try to hammer out those recommendations all together. If that is the case, that may very well require more than one meeting to sort of have those conversations and back and forth and discussions. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll see how things go. So to wrap things up in conclusion, we are going to be exploring these issues in the coming weeks and months. Members are certainly encouraged to invite witnesses to these different particular days, and if you have thoughts on that, please get them to myself as well as Mr. O'Brien ASAP, because obviously our most finite resource here is time, because all of you need to get home. And so I anticipate on some of these there's going to be a lot more people who might want to talk than we have time for. So if you have thoughts, get those to us on the soon side. Our next meeting will be, we're proposing to have Thursday, October 21st, so 3 weeks from today, the department, 20th. It's Thursday, October 20th, sorry. The department's still putting together the data, so we want to give some time to make sure that we're all okay on that front. Again, I want to open it up. Does anyone have any thoughts or concerns about the next meeting being Thursday, the 20th? Yeah, we're going to open up to some more general questions. All right, so we'll pencil that in. We'll say it's at 1 again. We might want to have some of the meetings not be at 1, particularly the community stakeholder one. We might want to have that after work hours to make it accessible to folks. But it sounds like we're all good on this next meeting time. So that's a brief overview of what we're thinking about here. And now happy to open it up for questions or comments from the commission members.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Regunberg. From our experience in the hearings that were held before the legislature, there were a lot of people who did want to speak, and some spoke at length, and everybody had a chance to say their piece, the consequence of which was that it was running into 4+ hours long. And so my question would be, what criteria will we be using to sort of determine who the faces and voices of certain stakeholders, whether they be formerly incarcerated individuals, family members, and also with regard to the professionals, the health and mental health professionals, wondering how we can sort of winnow it down so that the hearing doesn't go on longer than it should. And we all agree that these are voices that should appropriately be raised.
That's a great question. I think the only way forward is for us to, before each meeting, for folks who have people that they think want to testify, to get those to us, for us to sort of look at the list, and I'm happy to have that be a collaborative process where we share that and sort of look at it before the next meeting and try to have some dialogue around how do we make those decisions.
Thank you.
So there may very well be a lot of work that happens in between these meetings. For folks at home, we're going to be working hard on this. Any other questions, comments about next steps? Great. Well, it looks like we can wrap this up on the early side. I want to thank again Mr. O'Brien from House Policy Office, who's been doing a lot of work. He's reached out to all of you and really, really appreciate his help, as well as Lynn Urbani, the director of our policy office, as well as the speaker and the House of Representatives for creating this study commission so that we can have these important conversations. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. We will adjourn, and I will look forward to seeing you all in October.